Okay, cool. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, because I think we have folks from various different geographies joining today. And I'm very pleased to have David here. David is a very well-known Solidity developer and blockchain developer, and above all, a thought leader in the space, in the blockchain space. David, by the way, you have a lot of fans here.
Oh,
So
really?
a lot of our community loves you in terms of the content that you put forth. They find it super helpful and useful actually, and insightful above all. So we'll touch base on that. Without further ado, thank you so much for joining today. Let's get started. So the way how we will do this session is we will divide this into 2 to 3 parts. One is how did you find your love with Web 3.0, your background a little bit, and then how did you find your love with Web 3.0, and especially with Solidity, since that's the topic of the session, how to build a career in Solidity and why Solidity in particular. And the second half, we will talk about what are the present trends that are happening in the Solidity, how a developer can develop deeper skills in the space, and the third part, like we'll open the floor to questions. We have a couple of questions that came in already, and we'll see we can take a couple of live questions as well. So Ashay will be helping in co-moderating this on the questions part. So yeah, on that note, let's get started. So David, now to learn your journey, background, and when did you find your love into Web 3.0?
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Karen, for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Hopefully, what I have to share today is useful for you guys. So I started my journey roughly 2 years ago. I started working independently. I'm a self-taught engineer, and I fell in love with the technology because of a guy called Andrew Cronje. So if you guys spend in the space for a bit over 2 years, you probably have heard his name before. And I was very inspired by knowing that there is a possibility that even you as an individual can build something that can completely revolutionize the entire industry. So when Andrew Cronje created Yearn Finance, he created a new way of the process of lending money automatically didn't exist before, and he did that process by himself pretty much. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, well, if there is this much power in this technology, then why not starting it? So that's kind of like what got me into Solidity and the whole crypto space as a whole.
Oh, that's super awesome. I know I'm a huge fan of his work as well on finance. That's great. So did you have any prior experience, David, in terms of did you work in Web 2, or your entry into the development world was directly through Web 3.0?
Yeah, so my start was, I think, similar to what most people have, which they actually are not Web3 developers right away. They tend to come from a different industry, whether that's Web2 or not even a tech industry. So myself, I was a project coordinator at Ford Motor Company. So I live here in Michigan, in the US. And after working there for a year, then I went back home and I stayed there for a few years. And that was the moment where I started learning Solidity. I got into, how can I say this? So yeah, so once I came here under something called TPS, which is temporary protected status. So that's basically status for Venezuelans that can come here and stay here in the US. I started working, and yeah, that's just that's kind of how I got here. And then my previous job before coming into Web3. So
No, that's super sweet actually. Yeah, I spent a couple of years there, so been through those journeys and the tougher loss there. So why did you decide to go with Solidity? I know you have done a post about why to start with Solidity and not go with Rust initially. Why that love towards the Solidity in the first place, and how did you start picking up? Did you go through the tutorials on YouTube? I know you said you are a self-made developer. So what was your starting point? How did you build that skill set, basic, intermediate, and advanced level skill set within Solidity?
Yeah, so I decided to focus on Solidity because of, well, there are a few reasons why. So number one, there is more job opportunities. Number two, there's more tutorials and resources. 97% of all the NFT transactions that happen on crypto are on Ethereum alone. I mean, not even layer twos. And there is no reason for me to go to other chains where the adoption is not there. There are some pros with Rust Solidity language, with Rust programming language. There are other chains that offer a few things that are different from Ethereum. However, the adoption is not there yet. They still have to prove themselves. They haven't been up to the task. Even Solana, I develop a little bit on Solana, and even though their resources are quite good, and Rust is a really good language, performance is not necessarily the best feature for a programming language in order to be building innovative applications. And I mean, we can see this happening in Solidity, where flash loans, automated liquidity, yield farming, and all these different tools have been actually created in Solidity and not in any other language. So I have yet to see if there is any innovation that gets adopted by a different language and also by a different chain. Obviously, there are a few innovations. However, I haven't really seen any disruptive innovation coming from a different blockchain. The EVM tends to be very elegant, especially with the virtual machine. There is just a lot of different free resources. There are other free resources as well for other languages. However, I think that long term, the adoption and network effects that Ethereum has gathered throughout the years is just too hard to overcome for any other chain. And I think that long term, if your goal is to grow in your career, you want to grow in your career with things that you learn that are going to be relevant 5 to 10 years from now. And I believe that Ethereum has that. And I sound like an Ethereum maxi, but I actually use other chains for my crypto. And I do believe that there's space for other chains, but it is very important for you to focus in where the demand is actually going, especially if you're a developer, because you don't want to be developing in a chain where there's no one using it. So that's why I chose Ethereum. Now you're mentioning Solidity. I guess you're touching why the programming language. Well, that's pretty obvious. I mean, you could also use Viper. However, there is not much resources for that. And you can obviously use Yule for assembly and then low-level programming languages. However, I would actually encourage programmers to just be very, very careful with using Yule and assembly, because you can actually very quickly make a very horrible mistake. It's very easy to make, and things can go very, very wrong very, very fast. And if you think that Solidity is a language that can, it's a risky thing if you don't know what you're doing, well, YOL is actually even more risky. So that's why I chose Solidity.
Awesome, awesome. I know you briefly touched. I was just about to call you a Ethereum and Solidity maximalist, and but I see that you're also a proponent of other languages. You talk about the pros and cons through your thought leadership on the LinkedIn. The subtle differences, why someone should go to X vis-a-vis Y. Yeah, great points there, David. Thank you. Since most of our community here are developers, so let's get little, technical and deep dive a little bit on the Solidity part. So the folks here are learning the concepts, the basic concepts and intermediate level concepts about like writing a smart contract to creating a dApp to identifying the different concepts in the factory smart contract, etc. and all. But so what should an ideal career rather than a career path, ideal learning curve that should look like in a Solidity, starting from basic to intermediate to advanced, and how much role and importance should be given to doing projects right from day one, especially since we are talking in the Web3 world. So could you just help understand the learning curve that you suggest to the upcoming developers?
Sure. Well, so if you're a beginner and you're a beginner as a programmer, what I would suggest is just to obviously learn the fundamentals. I know that theory tends to be very boring. However, the longer you are in the space as a programmer, then the more you realize the importance of having a good foundation when learning programming. So, and what I mean by that is just learning really how to think and how to think logically. And if you are able to code and well, this is the framework that I use for coding. I use first principles. So when you're dealing with a problem, then the best way to approach a technical problem is by breaking it down into its individual components until there's no more deduction for those from those that you can deduce basically, and then you just build it back up. So for instance, if you're building a vending machine, then obviously try to define what are the state variables, what are the different functions that you are required, and just try to work firstly with either a diagram or try to build the architecture first. I try to use Miro or mostly Miro for that, and try to really understand the problem first before actually coding, because coding is actually thinking, and you need to learn how to think correctly. And just try to use that framework. I would use first principles. Elon Musk used the same principles. It's been around 2,000 years. I think Aristotle was the one that created it. It's obviously very useful. Those guys are a lot smarter than me, so I just use what they use. So I would just suggest that you do the same if you are starting out as a programmer.
Cool, cool. Okay. And with regards to specific concepts, right? Of course, writing a smart contract is the basic foundation. But on the top of it, how should a developer deep dive into specific concepts per se, within Solidity?
How should a developer think about different concepts in Solidity? Is that
No, for example, what do you consider as basic concepts, intermediate level concepts and advanced level concepts within Solidity, and then how should one start learning and developing those particular skill sets?
Sure. Well, let's divide developers into three categories. So beginners, intermediates, and advanced. So for beginners, what I would suggest is just to understand fully what are functions, just the very basic things, data variables, all the different data structures, and try to just master those very basic things. That syntax is obviously very important, especially for the flow of ideas. However, that's obviously not the most important part. Try to just understand the different components within the language. And if you want to go intermediate, then try to understand how you can put different things together, right? So how to use libraries, how to use interfaces, how to use inheritances correctly, because that takes a little bit more of a higher skill. And for advanced developers, if they want to really want to set themselves apart from the competition, what I would suggest to them is to focus on one thing, which is security. I cannot stress this enough. I mean, I've talked to some people important in the industry, and then the only thing that they talk to me about is just security. And how do you actually approach security within your contract, right? So not only just importing files from Open Zeppelin, such as reentrancy guard, but also trying to make sure that you have the different a structure within functions, right? So try to, I mean, there's one approach where you have to set up the required keywords first within a function before you actually write anything down, right? So try to just understand fully how you can implement security. And I would also suggest developers, if you are currently working with a team, to encourage the founder or the people that are managing the treasury or the funds for the company to invest and to get their code audited. Although it is important that you guys know security, it is standard and is best practice to pay a third party for reviewing your code. It is extremely important. You're not supposed to audit your own code. It's supposed to be, that's why Coinbase, in order for you to be listed on Coinbase, you have to pass that. And we saw that recently with Convex, which is this protocol that is built on top of Curve, and they actually found a vulnerability that would have cost them billions of dollars, and that actually happened very recently. And they realized that because they wanted to be listed on Coinbase and they didn't get an audit. And so that just goes to show that even the top best anonymous developers, they still make a lot of mistakes, and it's okay and it's fine. So you should just try to get your code audited no matter what, whether it's your project or someone else's, if possible.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, I mean, can't stress enough on the security part, right? I think yeah, we wake up every day with some hack or the other. Unfortunately, in the Web3 space, that actually opens up a lot of opportunities, for developers, to learn that particular skill and make whole Web3 very robust there. So I want to touch, on one more topic, and then I'll, pass the floor to Ashay. So you touched upon multiple aspects, David, on for the basic, intermediate, and advanced level. So if we all know that the ETH staking is coming into picture, like whether it happens in July, August, or September, it's just a matter of time. It is happening, and it is on the way, right? So I was actually talking to a couple of investors yesterday, and even though like most of them are like, okay, hey, we are not betting too much on L1s or new L2s, because we have understood that, okay, proof of stake is a consensus mechanism that we are going after these days. Proof of work, again, a little bit of question mark there, but like, since ETH will move to proof of stake, everyone has agreed, okay, let's move on. And for now, at least, right, until like some other layer comes up with a super logic and solves like most of the present challenges. Anyway, what I would like to discuss and hear your thoughts are about, so people were talking about sharding, and especially the modular blockchain approach, to be the way forward, especially when the ETH 2.0 happens. And they're placing so much of emphasis on ZK rollups and ZK files and Stark files there. So from the developer point of view, uh, how should one start unbundling these concepts, because these concepts are little complex, little tricky, and there is not much material out there. So as a developer, like, how should one start unbundling? How should one start learning through these particular concepts? Of course, might be when we are talking 6 months down the line, we have more content and more experience and more videos, but say as of today, how should one start looking into this?
Yeah, so your question is about like understanding all these different layer 2s and CK rollups, correct? CK
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna give my opinion, which is not very popular, I think, but I don't think that layer 2s and CK snarks, they're going to be as adopted as layer 1s. I mean, we see this in the industry. If you just go to DeFi Llama and just check the total value lock of these L2s, right, whether it's Optimism or Arbitrum, you're gonna see that the total value lock is actually pretty low, pretty small, even though they've been around for a while now. And it just goes to show that they are not user friendly. And there is no, I tried to use Optimism once and it was just a pain. Same with Arbitrum. I just decided just to go to another chain that's cheaper, that is EVM. So these concepts of developing in layer 2s, I think they're not as important as we actually make them think. The important part here within the industry is for Ethereum to implement sharding. And once that happens, then the gas prices are going to be extremely low. Layer 2s are just for helping with the congestion of the ecosystem. However, that is not something that we've seen where there's a lot of value, especially once sharding is implemented, then there is actually no reason for layer 2s other than just helping Ethereum scale, which that's obviously going to help. However, I would say that if your goal is to either get a job or try to grow in your career, I think more than just actually understanding layer 2s and CK snarks, which are very complicated and complex problems, there's no actual use cases at the moment for CK snarks that have been really adopted. And I would actually wait, and I would try to just master the basics and the fundamentals first. If you're able to do that, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of jobs offers out there looking for you. So if that's your goal, then I would actually say just to really focus on that and move up from the ladder.
I literally love this answer. Trust me. This is such a pragmatic answer. Rather than people talking about okay, FOMO. Okay, hey, these are the new concepts. You need to start learning. You need to start experimenting. Yeah, this is such a pragmatic approach. Okay, there's so much to be done. Start learning the basics. Get your projects. There are so many projects to be built, and once we figure out whatever concepts there are, we can move on to the later stage once we identify use cases in them. Great. Thanks a lot, David. So on that note, Ashay, would you like to pick up some questions that we have? Guys, keep the questions coming in the chat. We have some questions that we got in our community in the Discord, but if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box and we'll pick it up. Ashay, over to you.
Yeah, sure, Kiran. So, David, one of the questions is, how is the usual day in the life of a blockchain developer at work? And like, what are the dynamics of development? What are the practices we can indulge in while learning this exciting stuff?
So how is it like working as a blockchain developer remotely? Is that what your question was?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the second question? Sorry that I missed that part.
Yeah. What are the dynamics of development? As in, what are the practices we can follow while working on our personal projects? Like industry standards.
Yes. Yeah. So, well, working as a blockchain remotely, I mean, I've been working. I actually haven't worked on site for a while now. If you never worked remotely before, I think it's a very, I mean, it has its pros and cons, right? So number one, I mean, you actually don't have to commute. You can work from home. You can, cook your own food. So it's cheaper that way. You don't have to deal with traffic. The only downside to that is that you don't get to talk to people face to face. So it gets a little bit lonely. I would actually agree with that, especially if you're doing this for years. And that's usually how the life of a blockchain developer is. However, most of us are introverts, so it's not like we need so much external communications with people. I tend to get tired after a while with that. So I'm more than okay with just talking to people with video conferences 3, 4, 5 times per day, and that should be it. So that's for kind of like the lifestyle of a blockchain developer. Well, that's for me in my experience. And if you just want to set up a good habit or a good routine, I would suggest just to really, if you are an early morning person, just to dedicate 3 to 4 hours of just coding and try to just really find a way to that you can find a very productive time for coding, right? So you don't need more than 3 to 4 hours. Some people code more. I would not suggest that. I don't think your brain is if you really want to be efficient, 8 hours of coding, I can do it. It's too much. So try to just learn right after those 3 to 4 hours of just coding. And what I mean by coding is just thinking and code, and whether that's your own project or someone else's. Now you were also mentioned about your how to build your own project. So what I would suggest you do is that if you're a beginner, obviously try different things. Try to follow tutorials on Ethereum organization. You're gonna see a lot of different code there that is open source. You can see there the how to build an automated market maker, how to use libraries and interfaces, and it's all there for free. Try to learn from all different use cases. And then once you want to start your own project, what I would suggest is just obviously start to approach your problem from a first principles approach, which is try to begin with the end in mind. And then, yeah, just start dropping in on the repo and GitHub and see if you can actually gather some people. Remember that if you are starting a project, you are not selling really the project, or you're not paying also someone else. You're selling your vision. So it is incredibly important that if you want to build something, that you understand the vision and why you're actually having the vision, whether it actually matters or not. Remember that people don't care about you. They just care about what product you build that solve their problem. And that's what matters at the end of the day. That's how the market values you as a developer. And yeah, and if you can articulate their problems to them, then that's a good way to start. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, sure. And another question would be coming to tools. So first one is Hardhat or Truffle. Which one is preferred for building dApps? And second is Alchemy or Infura. Which one is preferred for nodes?
Okay. So the last year, we've seen a huge spike in the adoption of hard hat. Hard hat has a few things that makes it very, very user friendly. For one, there is not much issues with compilation. Truffle has a little bit of those issues. There's a lot of different tools and plugins that hard hat has that are actually very user friendly. You can use Ether.js instead of Web3.js. You can obviously use Ether.js with Truffle, and obviously you can use Web3.js with Hard Hat. However, the tooling for Hard Hat is just a lot easier to understand and much faster. So especially with the local host, I mean, I really love it. It's pretty fast to just test your own things really quickly. And if you see the NPM downloads for Hard Hat, it's actually about 3 times more than Truffle. So it just goes to show that it's just a better tool. And Truffle is slowly just unless they actually change completely, I don't see them being adopted long term. And I also heard about Foundry, but I saw that NPM downloads and I didn't even bother in using it. I believe it's just 200 and Hard Hat is 90,000. So that just explain everything that you need to know. Now it's pretty new. It might be extremely good. I just haven't used it and I don't see the demand yet. So that's why I don't spend time in learning it. Sorry, there was another question, but I think I missed it.
Yeah, Alchemy or Infura, which is preferred one for nodes?
I like Alchemy for the user interface that they have. However, I actually use for my nodes, I use Morales. You can deploy more chains on Morales, and their documentations, I also believe, is a lot better as well. Especially if you want to use, if you want to manage the data. I haven't used Alchemy for that. I use Morales for that, and it's been very well to me. I actually had an issue one time, and I went to the forum, and a guy called Chris, he responded to me right away on Discord, and he solved the issue that I have, which actually was a bug that was in one of the repositories that they have. And they within the same day he helped me out solving that issue. So I mean, I have nothing but good things to say about Morales. I'm not affiliated with them. I don't work with that. I'm not a sponsor by them or anything. I think their product is good.
Yeah, thanks. So another interesting question is about NFTs. So these NFTs, they are just digital art forms, like having thousands of variation of the same image. So what is their actual worth, and will they still hold value in the next 10 years?
Yes, well, so NFTs is, if you want to summarize what they actually are, they're just contracts that gives you ownership to an asset that cannot be replicated. That's exactly what they are. And once you understand that concept, then you understand that it's just not about JPEGs. It can be absolutely so many different things. It can be, car title, house titles, or deeds, or it can be just royalties. I think that most important use case for NFTs is perpetual royalties, and it's just the ability for creators to get a percentage of the revenue that comes from the trade of their own creation. And that can, right now the use case is art, and just for creators. But I mean, there are just so many use cases that I don't have any idea how many different use cases can be implemented with that. So and before diving into just something very innovative, I would suggest try to just read and understand the market and what they want, and from there just try to build a project that can solve that issue. And right now there's just a lot of different whales, and they just want to flex how much money they have, and they just pay for a JPEG and show how much money they have on their Twitter feed or LinkedIn. And I mean, look, that's fine. I mean, there's a reason why we have luxury brands and Gucci and all these different brands that are more expensive, and that's fine. That's just one use case. But there's just so much more to it that I think is very short-sighted to think that they're just JPEGs and art alone. So
Yeah. And let's say right now the big tech giants are still not into blockchain. So let's say if tomorrow Google or Microsoft come with their own blockchain, so how will we adjust to this scenario, and how to react to this situation?
well, I think it would, the same thing would happen with with what happened with Facebook, right? I mean, even though Facebook didn't build a blockchain, they try to build their own currency, and then trying to build this metaverse and just see people react to it. You just got to remember that these people and us and the companies, even the big ones, we just serve the market, and what the market wants is decentralization. So if that's not there, then I mean, long term, you're not going to compete against things such as Ethereum or or even Avalanche, which is decentralized but not as much. But all these decentralization is literally the only reason why crypto is so unique. I mean, without it, we just have a fancier way to build applications, and without that thing, then we're not doing anything new, really. So
Yeah. And another question is, like, right now, everyone is trying to solve any problem with the use of NFTs, DeFi, and blockchain. So how do we actually find a legit use case and then work backwards and try to find which technology is the best to solve it? So how do we decide on that?
sorry, could you repeat that one more time? The first thing, I just
Yeah,
couldn't understand the question
yeah.
well.
Right now we are trying to solve everything with NFTs, DeFi, or blockchain, right? People are just throwing decentralization for each and every problem. So how do we find which are the actual problems we should be working on using blockchain?
Yeah, so well, what most people tend to do is they try to build a non-solution to a non-problem. It's kind of like the same way that Naval Ravikant uses, right? So you're just trying to put blockchain to something, but that doesn't actually mean that you are solving the problem. I mean, some applications don't need blockchain, and some applications shouldn't be decentralized. That's important to mention as well. If you're trying to build something for the market, what I would say is just to how can I put this into two words? I lost my thought. Sorry, man.
All right, no worries. I'll just
Oh, you can
ask.
just repeat the question. I just like I lost my thought. Sorry. It's
No
too early
issues
in
at
the morning
all.
here.
Yeah, it happens. It's early in the morning. Yeah. Asha, might be we can pick up the next one.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, man.
Yeah, so I'll just ask two questions. One is there are a lot of no-code tools like Third Web. So in futures, will developers be needed? And another is how to feel confident that your smart contracts are secure enough.
Well, there's no such a thing as just secure enough. I mean, that's like saying that you are secure, that nothing is going to happen to you in life, but you cannot control that. And you have to understand that hackers have the advantage, not you, and they have the time, and they can change and they can go over your code for as long as they want, but you don't. Usually, if you're building something, you have a timeline, and you don't have that much time to spend on security unless you are being audited, right? So I think just a good way to protect yourself is just to really just get audited. And I mean, that has shown that it actually works. I mean, you haven't actually heard about either Compound or Aave or these big protocols being hacked. So yeah, so that I would say that yeah, that would be the case.
And your comment on no-code tools like Third Web?
Yeah, so the thing about Third Web is that on no-code tools is that they are actually great for building an MVP. So especially if you're starting as a founder, and if you want to be a developer, you want to also build a project, what I would suggest is actually leverage no-code tools so that you can just focus on the actual value of your project first. So what does that mean? So it means that you can host things for free, and you can use MailChimp just to get people's mail list. You can use Typeform to get feedback based on the product that you serve to the market. You can use all these different tools that are no code that are very useful, that allows you to build things quickly, and then you can see whether the market wants what you're offering or not. A lot of different companies that I've seen raising funds right away is that they just don't even have the product. They just have a proof of concept with a good website. They have a good white paper, they have a good team, and then from there they just start trying to raise funds. And then that actually that can work. It's not a, I would actually not even suggest that, but if that's the route that you want to do, you can do it. The reason why I don't suggest that is because you actually tend to give away too much equity because you don't have any value right now. So that means that investors are taking a lot of risk, and then for that risk they want a huge percentage of your company. That's usually between 20 to 30% out of the gate, and that's actually quite a lot, especially if you're a profitable company. So however, there is a downside to no code tools, and the main one is that you are competing against other people that are just as creative as you. So unless you're actually building or offering something using those tools that is unique, I mean, you're gonna eventually need to code that yourself. And to start out, you can use no code tools. I think that's great. I use that for that. I'm building my own startup right now, hopefully launch in 2 to 3 months. But you know, once long term, what I would suggest is to just have everything in house. And I follow the same advice that Y Combinator uses, which is try to not use third-party vendors to build your own software and applications, because long term what happens is that it gets very expensive. You don't have control over the things that you can iterate. And it's better if you have those engineers in-house so that you can know exactly what's happening. And if there needs to be a change, that change can be done quickly. And that's what I think about no-code platforms. But I think they are a great tool. But I don't think they're good at differentiating yourself from others.
Yeah. And the last question from my side would be different type of NFT projects to have in portfolio for applying to jobs.
NFT projects for applying for jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're in a bear market, so that means a lot of these NFT projects are gonna be dead, and so I would not actually not be applying to these projects. Most of them are not gonna survive, and we're just at the very beginning. And I'm not a financial expert, but what's currently happening here in the US is that the Federal Reserve is raising rates, and they're gonna keep raising rates, and that means that things are gonna get uglier. We're not in the bottom yet, and I'm 100% certain of this, and it's because they're raising rates, and that's why we've seen the tank in crypto in general, and they just raised 50 points recently, and they're going to raise more because inflation here is pretty insane right now. And so I would suggest, so if you want to apply for jobs and you're looking for internships and junior positions and try to start out your career, what I would suggest is that kind of do the same thing that I did, which worked out for me, which is learn a skill, build a very small general portfolio, and then try to get clients and try to connect and do network. So the best social medias for this would be Twitter, LinkedIn, and also Discord. And try to connect with people, and even just try to do work for free for others. Why? Because when you're trying to get hired, the only reason why you're not getting hired is because companies don't trust you enough. So in order for you to make them trust you, you have to show them something. And it doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be big, but it has to be something. And if you're able to show that through a portfolio and you can convey your ideas well and articulate your thoughts clearly, then you have a huge advantage over the rest, because that's not very common. And the best way to articulate your thoughts is by actually writing. And if you can write what you're coding, and what I mean by that is just articles, just share with, look, I share with others what I learned on LinkedIn. That's what I do. And it actually helped me out a lot by just understanding myself, what I'm learning better. And it's just by writing it. And so I would suggest doing that. It helps you a lot. And when you have an interview, then it's easier for you to convey your ideas. So yeah, just try to work on projects with clients or with just people, have some portfolio there. And then trust me, man, like it's very hard to get your foot in the door in this space. But once you do, I mean, the amount of demand and job offers that I get, I have to say no to a lot of every day, and I'm not kidding. And I'm not even like super, I don't consider myself the top of the top. So it is, you just have to get your foot in the door. And that's the hardest part. And that's where most people quit. So don't quit. Obviously try to see whether this is something you like to do. There's no point if you don't like it, because you're just going to be miserable. So, but yeah, that would be my advice to young comers and newcomers.
Awesome, awesome, David. So we have 3 more minutes, and we'll take 2 more questions, and then I'll want some closing remarks from you. So very quick, we'll keep it very short, 30 seconds. So how do you balance between a lot of research reading vis-a-vis coding on different projects? 30 seconds.
How do I manage coding in different with multiple projects?
Coding vis-a-vis research and reading. You know, how do
how do I balance that? Yeah. So okay, so well, like I said before, so you usually want 3 to 4 hours of coding. Obviously, if you're learning, so obviously you're not going to code anything, or you just should at least try to code what you learn and try to build your own things. Obviously, if you're going to start your first smart contract, then just try to store data and try to manipulate data. I mean, that's usually like one thing that you can do, right? And then just try to code what you learn and try to implement what you're learning right after. It helps you retain information better. And if you're researching, I would suggest try to have more audio. When I'm actually reading, I also have audio, or when I'm doing something, I tend to have audio. I follow Coin Bureau. I think that guy is the best of the best when it comes to education of crypto. There's no one doing anything better than him. And it's try to find the best resources, because not all the information is good, and not all the information is well summarized and well explained. So try to get it from the best resources. So I would say Coinbureau is one from YouTube. Chainlink is really amazing for oracles. Open Zeppelin for security and standardization. So try to just really learn from the best. That way you don't spend too much time going to so many different places learning the same thing.
Perfect, awesome. So second question was, when you're going through open source projects, so what is the good strategy to analyze so that the developers can start contributing to them?
Okay.
How do you analyze open source projects?
Yeah, well, the way I analyze open source is whether people are using it or not, right? So, and one thing that you actually want to do also is try to fork projects that have been forked a lot before. So Uniswap V2, that's a good example. I mean, I think that's the project that's been forked the most, and there's probably a reason why. So I would suggest starting doing something like that. However, AMMs tend to be a little bit more advanced, but you can start off very small. You can just start off with just a staking thing, or just something like an airdrop, and you can start off from there. And if you want to add to the community and contributing it, you can obviously do the pull request and so forth. But other than that, I mean, it's just really having whether you want to build something similar to that in the long term or not, or whether you want to learn something new about something that you want to build later on. That would be, I guess, my criteria for like contributing to projects or not, because that's obviously your time as well, right? So you have to think of that, and you are limited of time, so there's not like 10 different things you can do. You have to do 2 or 3, and you have to pick them. So yeah.
Cool, awesome. On that note, thank you so much, David. I took like a lot of notes, and I'd like to highlight 3 to 4 great points that you mentioned. Laser focus approach, be pragmatic, go all in, think through decentralization whenever you're building, and write and articulate. When you code, start putting it to the words, and put it on the social media so that you have a clear thought process. So I'm sure the community here picked up a lot of knowledge and insights from the session today. Thank you so much. Last comment and we'll close. And thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Kieran. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And I really hope that, what I have to share was useful. My goal is really just to teach others. I never really had a mentor, so I wish I had one. It would have saved me a lot of time. And just don't give up and work hard. We're in a bear market, and here's where wealth is actually created. So just stick with this, and in crypto you just have to survive. And this is said by whales. It's not said by me. So if you survive, you're gonna make it. So that's it, man.
Absolutely, make it big, right? Thank you. And you're such a great mentor, David. Keep doing the great work. And as I said, a lot of followers, and we will keep following you. Doubling down on what you are saying, in the sense like following what you are saying every day. Yeah. On that note, thank you so much, everyone, and especially special thanks to David for doing this today. And yeah, we wish you good luck in all the endeavors. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you so much, Karen. Thank you so much, everyone.